Jurassic Park 1990 book review. Now, most fans, like me, have pretty much exclusively been exposed to the Jurassic Park franchise only through film or video games like the Sega Genesis games. And, yeah, big fan. Oh, I'm such a fanboy. Yeah, let's get that out of the way. Michael Crichton. I've read a few of his books. What I love about him is he puts an exorbitant amount of research into them. You get a lot of information out of them. And this is the first time I read Jurassic Park. And after watching the movies copiously over the years, you find out that the movie is really condensed compared to the book, obviously. And reading the book, they explore the island so much more, and by that, there's a lot more dinosaurs in it. And obviously with the film, they're limited to the technology at the time, and there's a lot of different outcomes with the characters, and you get to see a lot more of the island, a lot more action, a lot more explained, obviously. Definitely worth checking out. Audiobooks all over YouTube. And so this is going to be completely spoiler filled throughout, so if you don't want to find out spoilers in the book, so you just reading it or listen to it first before you listen to this review. Back to the book. Pros. Let's get right down to the writing. I'd say the first third of it is really weak, and then he comes to a point where he just gets in the zone and it's superb. And there's really nothing ever poetic about Michael Crichton's writing, but it gets really good in the second half, and it gets you even more captivated by the story. And the island is explored so much more. Now, let's talk about the first third. We have a whole bunch of reports in Costa Rica of sightings of animals or cattle being killed. It just sounds like a bunch of documented chupacabra reports or something. So that takes forever, and they explain the whole thing, and Grant and Ellie it's the same story, obviously. The flow, the structure of the plot's the same. He has to get people, because the investors are leery at the park's opening, and they don't know how dangerous it could be, so they get the paleontologist Dr. Grant along with Sadler. And we end up finding out later in the book that the only reason why Hammond funded research on the Montana dig site is because they're more likely to find DNA in a colder climate so that they could recreate the dinosaurs, you see. So there's that element. Henry Wu plays a bigger role. He's the chief genetic engineer, so he's in it throughout, and he stays on the island. He doesn't leave or anything. And let's see here. Let's get more into it. The attack with the Jurassic Park, everything goes down. Dennis Nedry ends up taking the DNA off the island. And he actually ends up finding his body later on in the film. Muldoon doesn't die. And the Gennaro character with the lawyer and Ed Regis are combined into one. So Regis dies and Gennaro stays in throughout. Okay, let's talk about the T-Rex. The baby T-Rex is a real star in this. They show him. He ends up killing Ed Regis. And the T-Rex actually shows up 4 or 5 times throughout the book. He doesn't show up in the finale like in the movie. That was Spielberg's idea to have him show up, because he knew that the T-Rex was the star. But in the end, it's just the raptors at the lodge. Grant and the kids get separated, just like in the movie, and they obviously run into a whole slew of perilous situations, like a Dilophosaurus at the river. The T-Rex even gets in the river and chases them at one point. It's like slithering in the water. They're like, hey, all reptiles can swim. And Lex is like the most annoying character ever. I mean, I'm just going to be all over the place in this review if you can't tell by now. Like I said, they end up like finding Nedry's body after the storm and everything the next day. I'm not sure if they found the DNA canisters. I don't think that's it. I think they do, but I'm not sure. Can't say one way or the other. They explain the DNA gender transition even more, about how they mutate into hermaphrodites so that they could reproduce. All this evolution takes place way too fast to be convincing. And Michael Crichton writes his books. He was such a prolific writer at the time, or he didn't have to write it so that he did franchises or sequels, because he never did sequels. Well, The Lost World, the sequel to Jurassic Park book, was the first book he wrote as a sequel. Anyway, one of the scenes that really stood out, one of the scenes, the dinosaur scenes in the book, which was written nicely, that I loved, was the pterodactyls. The aviary gets shattered, just like in Jurassic World, the movie. And they end up attacking Lex and Timmy and Grant when they're out there, and it's a really awesome scene. Let me go over some of my notes here. Okay, Ian Malcolm gets injured, just like in the book. And the book really is about the two characters playing, the corporation playing with God and creating life, and the dangerous variables of trying to govern something that you cannot control. And the Ian Malcolm character, the chaotician, really does a lot of exposition, a lot of didactic spiels throughout. He's injured, but still vehemently pontificating throughout, and it's a really eloquent swan song for him, because he ends up dying in the end, even though they bring him back to life. He stays right up there until like the final chapters, totally blown out on morphine. And here's another good one. The T-Rex shows up several times in the river, like I was saying. And then there's one point where they have a device, a tracking device on them, and they end up tracking the T-Rex. I'm gonna turn this down a bit. Hold on. And they end up tracking the T-Rex down. Him and Gennaro go on a hunt. Muldoon's a drunk in the book, and they go into how he was real eminent wild game hunter in Africa, and he's worked at zoos all over the world, and then he got hired by InGen to work here. So they track down the T-Rex. That ends up being a futile attempt to capture him. They try to shoot darts at him, but they can't get him down. I'm surprised that he even survived. Actually, they do a little flip-flop on all the characters. You don't know what's gonna happen. And Hammond has his own bungalow. Hammond is not that jolly. He complains a lot throughout. I think Richard Attenborough brought a certain characteristic, where a charming, merry characteristic, where that's absent in this. He's just more of a boss type, where he's a total a-hole 24/7. And in the end, he ends up blaming everyone for it not working, and next time he does it, he'll do it better. And then he even admits in his thoughts that he only brought the kids along just to show Gennaro, the lawyer, that it can be kid-friendly, and kids will love this, just to be more convincing for him to sign off on it, and the insurance to sign off on it. He ends up falling in a ravine and breaking his ankle. And he's there for a while. It gets hot, and he end up getting attacked. There's even a T-Rex right there. And you think the T-Rex is gonna get him, but that's not what happens. Those Compy, those mini dinosaurs, ends up being his doom. Anyway, let's see. Let me just go over my notes. See if there's anything that I forgot. Arnold, the Samuel L. Jackson character, he's in it throughout. He's got a lot of good lines, and they actually go into detail about his death, where he goes out to recharge the power, reboot the system. A lot of the technology is antiquated in this, as expected, but you get a lot of theories. You get a lot of theories about dinosaurs that he took from other people, and then a lot of Michael Crichton's own theories, you know. The Dilophosaurus was a star for me. The Costa Rican government is the one who ends up coming in helicopters and saving them. Okay, for the finale, they all end up... This is different. How Grant, in the main lodge, he ends up going into the lab and getting raptor eggs and injecting them with a syringe of poison, and they end up glowing blue eggs, and he rolls them down, and he like rolls them at the raptors just to entice them to like bite it or something, like it would be instinctive or something for them to take care of the eggs. Two of them end up doing it, and the third one ends up I don't know, they end up shooting them with a dart or something. There's so many encounters with dinosaurs, I really couldn't even go into it all. Let's get to more of the finale. Grant, instead of them, like, in the book, Grant felt like he had a moral obligation to terminate the raptors specifically, because they're so shrewd, and that he doesn't want them to... He knows that they're going to end up migrating to the lands, and he doesn't want them to take over the world or some shit. So, they end up descending into this crevice where they find a raptor den and the nest, just to end up try to terminate it. But it's just such an awkward scene because they don't even do anything, and they even bring the lawyer down there, Gennaro, and there's big raptors, but they don't do anything. They don't feel any threat, and they all end up trailing out to... This is how they end up getting out of the fence. There was a crevice in the cave that ends up leading out to the beach. Also, with the fences down and the electricity down from the storm for most of the movie, a lot of the dinosaurs run rampant, and then that's how it's kind of left with the movie until the Costa Rican government shows up, and they end up bombing the whole place. They don't specifically say that, but they say there's like huge fire and explosions after they pick them up. They don't even like wait like for them to actually get out of there. It's just like they just like nuke the bitch like before everyone even leaves. Let's see here. And then they officially say that Hammond and Malcolm die, even though Malcolm's brought back in the second one, because he's really the star. He's really the adversary to say that this is wrong and that there's dangerous variables and it could never work. And he pretty much reiterates that every other chapter. I like it. Other people might not. But when you're a kid, Grant's your favorite character. But when you're a grown-up, Ian Malcolm's your favorite character. And then let's go over the DNA and gender transition. They claim that because they were spliced with West African frogs, that's how they were able to adapt and like reproduce and evolve so quickly, because life finds a way. And they end up getting, at the very end, they end up getting held captive at the luxurious hotel in Costa Rica by the Costa Rican government. And they're not really allowed to go anywhere. That's how it's left. Let's go over my final notes here. The survivors are Grant, Ellie, the two kids, Gennaro, and Muldoon, off the top of my head. Oh, and Wu gets killed by raptors in it. He's got a lot more dialogue and is a lot more involved. Like, remember, he comes back in Jurassic World, the movie, but in the Jurassic Park, the original movie, he's a minor character, really. Let's see here. When they find Nedry's body, his eyes are like gouged out. I love that scene. I love that whole chapter, the Nedry chapter. Oh yeah, Hammond eats ice cream that was infused with ginger that was grown on the island. I got the T-Rex here. It says he shows up at the lagoon, he swims, he shows up again at the river, and he gets stuck in the foliage. They remark that so many times. Anyway, I think I've pretty much gone over too much here. It's getting to 15 minutes. Everyone's getting bored. This was JBM from VillainNews. Click on the channel for more book reviews, horror, sci-fi, fantasy. I'm out. Thanks for watching.